What is up, everybody? I am AJ, and I'm going to give you guys a breakdown for UFC 259. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Great card from top to bottom. I'm looking at the first fight of the night here. We're looking at the first fight of the night. But I just want to just take a moment to acknowledge how truly spectacular this card is from top to bottom. We got 3 title fights on here. We got a lot of really cool prelims, including Dominick Cruz and Kenney. Yadong and Kyler Phillips will be fun, I think. Same thing with Joseph Benavidez and Askarov. So it's a really good card from top to bottom. I'm very much looking forward to it here. We got 15 fights. So let's just get right down to business. So the first fight of the night is Trevin Jones and Mario Bautista. I do like Bautista in the matchup. I think he's a much better striker. He's got more layers to his game. He's more technical. He's more defensively sound. He is willing to brawl at times, which makes me a bit nervous for him in this matchup. But I think that generally he's more defensively sound than Jones. I think he's got more variety with his attack on the feet. I think he's a better counter fighter and has better footwork as well. Jones, he has some power like he showed in that UFC debut, but generally he's not the biggest power puncher. That was like one of his only TKO KO finishes was in that UFC debut on his whole pro record. So I think other than like a big shot on the feet, that Bautista should win the aggregate of the exchanges. And Jones, I think, will need to get this fight to the ground to win. That seems to be where his strength is. He comes from a submission grappling background. But Bautista has shown me enough defensive grappling chops, awareness, scrambling ability to, I think, avoid any sort of submission and any sort of, bottom control significant amount of time with Jones say on top of him. So I am pretty sold on Bautista winning this matchup, and he's going to be my pick to win. Next fight on the card, we got Uros and Aalon Cruz. This fight is actually taking place at 155 pounds, which is noteworthy because Aalon Cruz previously fought at 145 pounds. And so maybe this move up in weight helps his durability. We saw him, obviously, he was finished there in that UFC debut quickly by Spark Carlisle. So we'll see. It's more so a theory, but I'm just kind of entertaining the idea to say that it's certainly possible. It could. Medic, he hasn't really been past the early going of a second round in a pro MMA fight ever. He's dangerous. He's threatening in that early going. He's obviously a long guy. They're both Medic is actually 6'1" tall, and Aalon Cruz is 6 feet tall, but Cruz, as we could see here, actually has a 78-inch reach advantage, or 78-inch reach compared to 71 inches for Medic here. So I kind of think like Medic needs to finish him quickly. Otherwise, Cruz's better pace is probably going to take over. I trust Cruz's cardio more just because we've actually seen him go almost the full way. In his Contender Series, we went almost to the scorecards there, a little less than 30 seconds than we would have. But as we could see here, per UFCstats.com, what did the guy do over the course of almost a full 3 rounds? Landed 132 significant strikes. That's really good volume. So I just, based off the information we have, I trust Cruz's cardio more down the stretch. Again, it's not something that I'm say backing as a bet. I also like the fact that Cruz has more reach. I like his output. I like his variety as a striker. As you can see here, he'll operate out of both stances. He's more so a pot shot on the outside, doesn't throw in combinations a whole lot, but when he does, they're very proficient. So I like his variety. He'll kick to the body, to the leg, to the head as well. So I really like how Cruz can mix it up. So again, Medic is going to be dangerous, I think, early on. He's going to be very confident, I think, being undefeated and coming off the Contender Series. But I do generally believe that if he doesn't get Cruz out of there early, then I think Cruz will give him problems down the road. So, or as the fight progresses, rather. So, Aalon Cruz is going to be my pick. Next fight, Livinha Souza and Amanda Lemos. I just finished up tape on this. I like Lemos in the matchup. I think she's got more layers to her striking. Souza pretty much just will throw the overhand right. She doesn't really set it up with a jab or anything. She's just pretty much looking for that solo. She'll throw it to the head and she'll throw it to the body, and she also has an inside low kick. Lemos I think she has more tools as a striker. I think she's got better range management. I think she's faster and more powerful as well. They're both excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, both black belts. So I don't really see huge advantage on the ground either way. I like Lemos's trip takedowns in the clinch. She's also very physical. She's a woman who used to fight in her UFC debut. Rather, she fought at 135 pounds, whereas Souza had fought at 115 in the past, which is where this fight is taking place. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess the weight cut, of Lemos. she should be okay considering how, just her most recent fight with two most recent fights with Inoue and Granger. But, it is something worth monitoring because I think they both don't have the best cardio. They both slow down as the fight progressed. We saw in both of their most recent fights that they could be clinched up against the fence and kind of controlled there. So it's a fight I really don't want any action of or a part of as far as like a bet goes. I do lean that Lemos probably wins because she's a better striker, and I don't see like a huge advantage either way in terms of the grappling. So Amanda Lemos is going to be my pick. Sean Brady and Jake Matthews, my first bet of the night. I do like Sean Brady in the matchup. I think he's a better striker. I think he's more technical, more defensively sound. I think he could have success with the low kicks. I think he fights at a much higher pace than Matthews. And so he should win the aggregate of the striking exchanges, I think. I also think Brady's the better wrestler. He's got a nice double leg. He's got the ability to chain wrestle. He's very strong in the clinch. And we've seen Matthews, despite being billed as like a grappler, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We've seen Matthews taken down in the past, struggle on the ground, get put in submission attempts, get the opposition's been put in dominant position, like the Bojan Velikovic fight, like the Andrew Ulberg fight. So Matthews, while he's kind of, dangerous offensively in terms of his jiu-jitsu, if you put him on his back, you definitely can have some success. And that's what I think Brady's going to do. I think Brady's going to be able to take him down, get some top control, and maybe even submit Matthews. Matthews just, we see it in more than one fight. He does slow down as the fight progresses. He gassed against Tony Martin in round 3. And that was part of the reason why Martin was able to get the submission there. He also got very tired against Li Jingliang. And even against Emil Meek, right? He won the first 2 rounds clear with his wrestling, but in round 3, he lost unanimously on all 3 judges' scorecards. And we know Brady has very good cardio. Brady could go out there and fight at a very high pace for 3 rounds. Like he showed in that UFC debut against Court McGee, he landed 119 significant strikes and landed 2 takedowns. We even saw against Ismail Nardiev in 3 rounds, he was able to, control the clinch exchanges, land 125 total strikes, get 4 takedowns, and nearly 8 minutes of control time. So I think it's pretty much Brady's fight to win. Like he should be able to win the striking exchanges, and he should be able to win the grappling exchanges, and he's got much better cardio. It is a step up in competition. I mean, you're always going to have that like hesitation, I guess, from one aspect, but as long as Brady just keeps winning, he's going to keep getting more step up in competition, most likely, unless if say he's matched up with somebody who is a step up in competition and like say they pull out of the fight or something, they got to give him a short notice opponent, something like that. But you get what I mean. Brady's just, as long as he keeps doing his thing, keeps winning, I think he's going to keep getting step ups in competition. I think he rolls here yet again. Carlos Ulberg and Kenney Nzechukwu. Very interesting matchup here. Ulberg trains with Israel Adesanya and Brad Riddell. He's got some hype on him. He looks like a very good striker. He actually comes from a strong kickboxing background. He's a very technical striker. He's got variety with his attack. He feints often. He's got very good footwork. Everything that counters very well. Everything you would expect out of an excellent kickboxer, Ulberg pretty much has. The only thing I'm a little nervous about him here is the lack of experience. Not super experienced in terms of pro MMA, but I think that working at the camp with Brad Riddell, with Israel Adesanya, all those guys, that's going to help him out. He does look very talented, to be honest. The other concern I have is the reach disadvantage. He's a very long guy, but Kennedy actually has a 6-inch reach advantage, as we can see here, 83 inches compared to 77. So that's the only thing that makes me a bit nervous for Carlos, but I think he's the better striker here in a fight that should be won or lost standing. I don't think there will be too much grappling here. So I think he probably rolls. Again, I'm not going to bet him because there is a chance that maybe his betting line is a bit inflated just due to the hype factor. I don't really know. It's not one of these instances where I think Conor McGregor is being overrated against Dustin Poirier or Nasrat Haqparast is being overrated against Drew Dober. I don't really know that. So we'll just have to wait and see. I hope we get to see Carlos tested here a bit, just to see what his cardio is like down the stretch. Just see him in there with like as much time in a UFC octagon to get more data on the guy. But I do think he rolls here and gets his first UFC win in his debut. Tim Elliott and Jordan Espinosa. I do like Espinosa in the matchup. It's just kind of hard for me to trust Tim Elliott. He doesn't have the best cardio management. Although he did do a better job of it last time against Ryan Benoit, he conserved his energy a lot more. But I think Espinosa has a better cardio, and I think he's a better striker, and I think he can compete. with Elliott in the grappling. I think if Elliott takes him down, Espinosa will be able to scramble fairly well. I don't think that Espinosa is the best defensive submission grappler. We saw that against Matt Schnell and even Alex Perez. And Elliott is a very solid scrambler, and he is a very good catch wrestler. So that's like my one concern I have for Espinosa in the matchup is maybe like, Elliott is able to catch him in something in a scramble. But other than that, I think Espinosa wins. I just trust him much more at this point. It's hard for me to back Elliott. He just, I do like that he's working with Krause, and I do think that was a big reason why he looked a bit better there against Benoit. But he still did get in some trouble there. Benoit did still put him in some submission attempts. So he always kind of puts himself in dicey situations, does Elliott, because he's pretty wild on the ground. And now we've seen him like in 2 fights recently where he's been rocked on the feet. He was rocked by Ryan Benoit, and he was rocked by Askarov. So I do like Espinosa in the matchup, and I think he rolls here. Kai Kara-France and Rogerio Bontorin. I like Kai Kara-France in the matchup. I think that his defensive grappling is generally is probably solid enough to keep the fight standing for most of the time, where I think he's a better striker. I think he's more technical. I think his output is much better. I think he's more defensively sound and has better footwork. He's not a guy I feel super confident backing unless if I think he has like a very clear advantage, because he generally fights very competitively. Like we saw against, even Mark De La Rosa and Raulian Paiva. He doesn't really pull away all too much in fights. Bontorin, I think his best chance to win this fight is either catch Paiva with Kara-France with a big shot on the feet and knock him out. We've seen Kara-France rocked in a lot of fights, like against Elias Garcia, as well as his most recent fight against Brandon Royval. He's also been finished via strikes a few times in his pro MMA career. Bontorin does throw hard, but I think that Bontorin's main path will be to try and take this thing to the ground and get a submission. I just generally think that Kara-France is probably good enough of a defensive grappler and scrambler to kind of avoid that, and where he should be able to win the fight on the feet. So as far as a pick goes, I'm going to go with Kai Kara-France. Joseph Benavidez and Askarov. It's hard for me to back Benavidez here at this point in his career. He's, as we can see here, he's 36 years of age. He's coming off 2 losses to Figueiredo, and I know it's Figueiredo. He's the champion and everything, but where he's at this point in his career, it's hard for me to trust him. I would probably back him here if he was closer to his prime. I was all over him as a bet against Jussier Formiga, and I see that it's kind of a similar dynamic here. Askarov, in theory, needs to take this fight to the ground and impose himself there. But Benavidez has always been an excellent scrambler and a solid wrestler. So I tend to think he'll struggle to take down and control Benavidez. And on the feet, I think it's fairly close. Benavidez doesn't always have the best defense in terms of when he enters the pocket, he tends to lean with his head, but he does throw with decent volume. He does throw with combinations often. So I think they're both going to test one another, but I think that just Askarov being closer to his prime, being the guy on the rise, potentially hungrier, I think that's probably going to be enough for him to win. It is a competitive fight for a reason, though. I think that stylistically, Askarov doesn't exactly blow Benavidez out of the water anywhere, but it's just a matter of where is Benavidez at in his career. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Tony Ferguson coming off his loss to Justin Gaethje, and then the following fight against Oliveira. I didn't think it was going to look quite like that. So I hope I'm wrong on this, but there could possibly be some regression here for Benavidez, but we'll see exactly how he looks. Kyler Phillips and Song Yadong. I did bet Kyler Phillips here. I like the fact that he's got the reach advantage. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage here. I think he pushes the far higher tempo on the feet. I like his variety a bit more as a striker. And I do think that he has the grappling advantage if these two tangle on the ground. Yadong doesn't have the best defensive grappling once you put him on his back, and especially if he's tired. He's got a good initial sprawl, does Yadong. He's a very good athlete. But we've seen him mountain. We've seen him get his back taken, like against Cody Stamans. We saw him struggle on the ground with Marlon Vera. But Phillips is very aggressive. He's got a strong submission grappling background. He'll look to pass guard aggressively in top position and look for the finish. And I think that Phillips here has a good opportunity to potentially break Yadong with his pace. There's always the hesitation with maybe this is too big of a step up for Phillips, but my eyes tell me that he's probably good enough to win here. Yadong is very technical. He hits very hard. He's got excellent counter. So Phillips will need to be mindful of that. but he's shown me enough defense and striking exchanges to where I think he probably is stays safe, and he's definitely got very good footwork and movement to where I think he probably avoids the big shot from Yadong. And like we talked about, he's got the reach advantage here. He does utilize straight punches and kicks at range. So I think that at range he could have success kind of landing at Yadong. And Yadong's not really able to land on him with a lot of consistency. And like I say, I think that Phillips has some of the best cardio in the division. He's got excellent cardio. The guy doesn't slow down. In fact, you can make a case that he picks up as the fight progresses. And we have seen Yadong slow down in more than one fight against Vera, against Damon. So, I kind of see that as like Yadong maybe needs to win early, or maybe he needs to win the first 2 rounds, and kind of like he did against Vera. Otherwise, I just think that Phillips is going to take over and maybe even finish him down the stretch. So I do like Kyler Phillips in the matchup to get the upset here, because at the time of recording this, he is the underdog. Dominick Cruz and Kenney to headline the prelims. This is another spot like the Joseph Benavidez and Askarov fight where it's like, I mean, stylistically, Kenney doesn't really blow Cruz out of the water, but like, Cruz has just been very, very inactive the past few years. He's 35 now. He's just been battling with injuries. We don't know how committed he is, right? Like he's got the commentary gig. It's just a complete pass for me from a betting perspective, because it's like, yeah, I mean, Kenney, he could in theory have success with the low kicks. We saw Cejudo do that. I don't think he's as diligent with them as Cejudo maybe showed there, but maybe, who knows? Maybe they just game plan and do it anyway. But they're both solid technical strikers. They both throw at high paces. And I just don't see a clear advantage for either guy on the feet or in the grappling. Like, yeah, Kenney can grapple well, but Cruz still showed in the Cejudo fight he's difficult to take down, and he scrambles really well off his back. So I think it's mainly going to be won or lost standing, where, again, I slightly favor Kenney just because he's younger and potentially a lot hungrier and the low kicks. But stylistically, this isn't this fight where I think that Kenney really blows Cruz out of the water. So yeah, it's just a complete pass from a betting perspective for me. It's just tough to tell where Cruz is at, because if he shows up at his best, I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him win. So we'll see exactly how this one shakes out. But similar to Benavidez, Cruz is seemingly near the end of his career. So I don't know how much I want to trust that. So should be a fun fight. It's the headliner in the prelims, and looking forward to it. Thiago Santos and Aleksander Rakic, fun fight. I could see why they opened the main card with this. I do favor Rakic here, not by a wide margin. I think he's the more technical striker, similar to Kenney. He's much younger than Santos, closer to his prime. He's got more upside as a fighter, I would say. But I don't see this fight as like, Rakic, it's like he's all day like on the feet. No, Santos, we know, is still very dangerous. He's still athletic. He still moves very well. And we have seen Rakic hurt. Like, he's not got bad durability by any means, but we saw him rocked badly by Devin Clark. We've even seen him lose. Like, he struggled against Ozdemir due to the low kicks. He had, just a big bump on his leg. Granted, I think the guy's gotten better. I see the improvements with his striking, layers added, tools implemented, that sort of thing. I still don't think Santos is the best defensive boxer. He tends to drop his hands a lot when throwing combinations, and Rakic is just more technical than him as a boxer, so I favor him there. But this isn't this fight where I just think like, oh yeah, Rakic is just going to go out there and just smoke him. I don't see it like that. I think Santos could really give him a handful on the feet, to be honest. And I just don't see Rakic going out there and taking down Santos and imposing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game like Glover Teixeira did. Maybe he could take him down, because Rakic is a huge guy for this weight class. But Santos is still a very physical athlete. I'd be pretty surprised to see Rakic just take him down and keep him there for several minutes. So I think it's mainly going to be won or lost on the feet, where, again, I edge Rakic just due to the technical advantages. But I think Santos is definitely alive there in a kickboxing fight, as he always is. So I'm going to pick Rakic, but no bet for me. Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober. This is another bet I have. I did bet Islam Makhachev here. I think that on the feet, he's going to, implement his very good range management, stay out of danger. Dober has probably the better pure striking of the two. He has very good technique. He's got good volume, and he has power. But Makhachev absorbs a very low rate of significant strikes per minute, as we're going to see here on UFCstats.com. Very, very low. It's the lowest in the UFC at 0.76, 72% striking defense. So while Dober has a chance to maybe win on the feet, I just think that Makhachev is going to do a good job of limiting the striking exchanges here, and I think make him competitive. But where I think Makhachev really has a big advantage is in the jiu-jitsu and in the grappling, or in the pure grappling and wrestling realm. We've seen Dober taken down and struggle on the ground in a lot of his losses. We saw Alexander Hernandez take him down in his most recent fight. Hernandez was rocked and was still able to take him down a couple times. We've seen him taken down and mounted and submitted by Beneil Dariush. We saw him taken down by Frank Camacho. We saw him taken down by Scott Holtzman. That seems to be the types of guys that he kind of struggles with. If you could take him down, keep him there, and maybe even get a finish. And I think Makhachev is one of the best grapplers in the UFC. He comes from a strong grappling background. He has shown to be a submission threat. So I think Makhachev is going to be able to get this fight to the ground, pass the guard to Dober, and either maintain top control or to get a finish. So that's basically the way I see the fight. He's a big favorite for a reason. I think he's a tremendous talent, potentially a top 5 guy down the stretch. This is a stiff test for him, no doubt about it. But I do think that Islam Makhachev rolls here again. And I'll say it again, but if you want to see a more in-depth written breakdown for my bets, again, it's on betmma.tips/AnthonyS364. You could also get it by subscribing to the mailing list on my website, www.ajmmabetting.com. An email automation will automatically be sent to you. So I go a lot more in depth with my written breakdown, my betting breakdowns there than say I do on here, just for the sake of time and, to be consistent with the amount of time spent on each fight for this card. And then we've got the first of our 3 title fights, Aljamain Sterling and Piotr Jan. And this is my final bet that we'll talk about here. I like Aljamain Sterling in the matchup. I think he does have the longer reach advantage. That's fact. He's got about a 4-inch reach advantage. And I think the lateral movement and the variety of straight attacks at range of Sterling is going to give Jan trouble. I think Sterling moves much better than Jan. Jan is fairly stationary. He relies on kind of walking you down, head hunting, and landing power volume shots. I think that Sterling is not going to let him settle. Similar to Islam Makhachev, Sterling absorbs a very low rate of significant strikes per minute, 1.94 with 66% striking defense. And it shows in his fights. He moves very well. He's very defensively sound. He'll utilize kicks to keep range. He utilize straight punches like we talked about. He's got the reach here, 71 inches compared to, just for the sake of reference, for the sake of transparency, 67 inches for Piotr Jan. I think that Sterling's got to beat on the feet at range. I think he'll land more volume. I think he'll not allow Jan to settle. Jan's going to be dangerous. He's going to walk him down. I think that Jan's more dangerous than Sterling. He's got that advantage, but I think that it's going to be Sterling that's winning the aggregate of the striking exchanges. And if this fight goes to the ground, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference maker, but I favor Sterling there too. I think he's a more dangerous submission grappler, but they're both excellent. They're both excellent scramblers. So I think it's mainly going to be won or lost on the feet. I don't see a guy really dominating on the ground. But even in the clinch, I like Sterling there as well. I think he's a bit more physical than Jan, to be honest. So yeah, I like Aljamain Sterling here. I think it's going to be new. Don't get me wrong. This is going to be a very stiff test, but I like him. I like him in the matchup. So yeah, I think it's going to be Aljamain Sterling that gets his hand raised. Co-main event, we've got the women's featherweight strap at stake. We've got Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson. Amanda Nunes, for reference, is one of the biggest betting favorites we've come across in recent memory here. She is minus 12,000. You could get her at 5 dimes. Wow, right? Minus 14,000, minus 1,400, excuse me, minus 1,200, minus 1,400 on Intertops, minus 1,200 on 5 dimes, right? So yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot for me to say. I think she's a better striker. She's more technical. She's more defensively sound. She moves better footwork. It's just like Anderson, maybe hit her with a punch on the feet and rock her. It's possible. Nunes was rocked briefly by Durandame, but if you ask me, Durandame is a much better striker than Anderson. So, and honestly, I think Nunes is just going to go out. Nunes and her team are just going to go out there and impose a grappling based game plan. Why even give Anderson a chance to win on the feet? That's what they did against Durandame. Just take this woman down and impose the better grappling. We know Nunes has much better grappling than Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson's grappling has improved through the years, but let's look at the Felicia Spencer fight. Spencer was able to pull guard, win a scramble, take the back of Anderson, and get a finish. And if you want to see the dynamic for reference of Spencer versus Nunes was able to dominate the grappling there. She took her down multiple times, kept her on her back, nearly got the finish. So Nunes, I think, not only has the advantage striking, but she's got a big advantage on the ground. So I think Nunes will be able to use one of her very good double legs that she utilizes in open space. She's also got a judo background. She's got some good trips in the clinch, does Nunes. She's very physically strong. She'll be able to get the fight to the ground, pass the guard to Spencer, and probably get a finish here early. I was eyeing the under 1.5, but honestly, I got about 14 units or so exposed to this card, so I'm going to be passing on it. Just going to sit back and enjoy. Again, some exposure I would like of Nunes, obviously for DraftKings and all other DFS formats. That's going to be where I get the exposure. But as far as the bet goes, it's, you know what I mean? It's minus 12,000. It's not even, I'm not even a big parlay guy, but I don't even want to consider parlaying that. It just doesn't have a lot of value, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be Nunes here. Again, of course, everybody's got a chance to win in a fist fight. But I just think that the aggregate minute winner will be Amanda Nunes. So I think it's going to be against still the Lioness here. And then we got the main event, Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz. I put a tweet out earlier this week. I do think Jan is Israel's toughest test to date in the UFC. Unlike some previous opposition Israel faced, like Paulo Costa, he doesn't have like a significant reach advantage. As we could see here, Costa 72-inch reach, whereas Israel had 80 inches. Similar deal against Whitaker, 73 inches compared to 80 inches of reach. And then even the Gastelum fight as well, 71 inches compared to 80 inches. So like we talked about right out of the gate in one of the earlier breakdowns with like, say, Phillips and Yadong or in Cruz and Medic, that was the more clear reference. Reach advantage is important. And especially for a guy like Israel, again, he's still got it here, but it's only a couple of inches against Jan. With this fight, he's not going to be able to, have as much of a reach advantage as he typically does. I still favor Israel as a striker. I think he's sharper. I think he's got more variety, and I think he's more technical. But Jan is very, very technical, very methodical. You could tell Jan and his team do a lot of work and preparation. They almost threw Reyes off guard. Like you could almost tell Reyes had this like look on his face, like, what is this guy doing? I mean, he just is very patient as Jan. He'll wait for you to enter range, counter very well, very good combinations. He's got power, obviously. And he's the more proven light heavyweight fighter, right? Israel's moving up in weight. I think Israel's going to be a bit faster, but I think Jan is going to be stronger, hit harder. Israel's still a sniper. Of course, Israel can knock out Jan, but Jan's shown to be generally very durable. The only guy to knock him out in recent time was Thiago Santos, and even in that fight, he didn't go out cold, right? Santos hit him with a big uppercut, and then, it was just like an excessive ground and pound stoppage. He's still got a very good shin, does Jan. He's got a very good defense. So I'm almost looking at this fight and going like, well, I think they're going to kind of have this methodical battle here where the fight, I think, could get kind of extended. They're both generally durable. Israel's never been knocked out in pro MMA. Obviously, he was hurt by Gastelum, so Jan still can hurt him. But I think there's going to be a lot of feeling out here. And in a bet that I have in place at the time of recording this, but I am going to right after I get off this pod, is the over 2.5. I really think that there's going to be a lot of feeling out, just a lot of the two of them just setting traps for one another, kind of like Darren Till versus Stephen Thompson, that sort of deal. They're going to have a lot of respect for each other's striking acumen. And I think it's going to be maybe not a fight of the night, like back and forth. They're going to each land 300 significant strikes each, but like a fun, like if you're a hardcore fan, like a fun chess match, fun striker battle where they're just strategizing the whole time, gathering intel on one another and pushing one another. So I'm going to be, I really admire that sort of fight. So I'm going to be really impressed with, I think, the way the fight is going to play out. Of course, one of these guys can go out there and win by knockout quickly, but like I say, they're both generally durable. They're both generally defensively sound. They fight at range really well. So yeah, I mean, and going along with my point about Jan's size advantage, I think that, Israel does a very good job of circling the fence. That was part of the reason why I backed him against Costa. I bet him there. I also bet him against Gastelum as well. And Whitaker. I've always been pretty big on Israel for betting, but this is a matchup where I'm just completely passing. I think the line is a bit inflated. If I was the odds maker, I'd be making Israel minus 150. So yeah, I think that there's not any value on his betting line right now, to be honest with you. So Jan, if he does get the clinch position, he's going to be the stronger fighter. He could potentially keep Israel there. It also creates an interesting unknown. Should Jan get in top position, what does that look like? Jan is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Israel's defensive grappling has gotten better through the years, but really, when was the last time we really saw his wrestling get tested? You have to go back like to Brad Tavares took him down once. Marvin Vettori took him down in round 3, put him on his back. Again, I don't think that's the most likely thing that Jan just goes out there and just takes Israel down with consistency, just lays on him. But it's an interesting unknown should that happen. I got to favor Jan in terms of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu realm for that reason. He's just a much more credentialed submission grappler than Israel is. So this is a fun fight. It really is. I mean, maybe it doesn't finish, but I think these two are going to test one another. And Jan, he's 38 years young, but this is the best form we've seen him in. You know what I mean? Like he's in his prime right now, in my opinion, as is Israel, as are all these title contenders. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not betting against Jan, man. I mean, this is a guy that has been the underdog consistently in all of his fights, and he just keeps coming through. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see Jan win, to be honest. I don't see this fight as like, Israel, it's Israel all day. I favor Israel, but I think that Jan is going to really test him. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jan make this fight close. I really would not. So as far as a pick goes, I'm going to pick Israel Adesanya, but no way am I betting him at these odds. And that'll conclude the breakdown. I'm glad I was able to get this in under an hour, a little over 30 minutes actually for 15 fights. So yeah, I just want to get concise with this. I really appreciate you guys listening to me. I hope you guys had a good weekend. I hope that you guys have a good event upcoming. If you like this sort of content, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below. Please feel free to leave a comment as well. You could also follow me on Twitter at AJ_SCHULLO. I forgot to mention also, I post my bets on there as well. I post like screenshots. But if you want to ensure that you're getting my betting breakdowns, the best way to do that, as mentioned before, is on the third-party tracking site that I use, betmma.tips. Or by subscribing to the mailing list. That way you will automatically get all my bets and breakdowns rather than, what if you're following me on Twitter, but maybe you don't see my bet get posted and you totally miss it. You could always go back and look, but I'm just saying it's more of a convenience to subscribe to the mailing list or check on betmma.tips. So that's all I'm saying. Thanks again, as always, for your time. I really appreciate it. And have a nice day.